Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We are here today to talk about our webinar. It's the Ultimate Webinar Series for the Serious Landscape Designer. We are in our webinar number 2. Our host today, Patrick Duchesne. Patrick, you're with us?
Yes, I am.
Feeling okay? You were saying you're a little bit under the weather. You're going to be able to make it through today?
Yeah, my throat isn't 100%, so I've got a bottle of water and a bag of throat lozenges, so between those two, I think we'll be good.
We'll bear with you.
All right.
So thanks for joining us, even though you're not 100% today. I know that what we have prepared will be really, really helpful for everyone. And for those of you out there, I'm Joe Salemi. I'm the Product Marketing Manager with DynaSCAPE Software. And thanks again for everyone for registering and for joining us today. So today's webinar is all about drafting made easy. And really what we're going to show is how DynaSCAPE Design, a landscape-specific design software, is going to make your life easy. And I know that we have a lot of clients on the line, but we also have some that are joining us today that are not clients and are going to see this for the first time. So we're going to have Patrick go through his entire workflow, and for the most part, he's going to get the majority of a design done in this short amount of time that we have today. But really what I want to focus on are title blocks and how we have preset ones that are ready to go, and you can have templates that you can make, the ability to import site surveys, being able to scale them and then trace over them. We're going to go through the drawing tools that we have. Design software is all about the drawing tools that are built in. The plant symbols and the labeling that we have. Being able to produce plant schedules very quickly and very easily. Our hatch patterns, and a whole bunch more that Patrick's got in store for us. Now, drafting made easy, Patrick, we're going to be creating designs that are looking like they've been done by hand, because that's what DynaSCAPE specializes in, doing them in a fraction of the time that look absolutely stunning. The goal is saving time, being able to set up drawings quickly and easily, finding and adding plants from 2 partners now. So we have partners from Horticopia, and I'm not sure, Patrick, if you've seen the plant list lately, but we've just introduced the woody ornamentals from Proven Winners.
Yeah, I did. I got on there the other day after you reminded me of it.
And inserting the pre-drawn symbols that we have from our extensive symbol library. And so, Patrick, I think this is the point where I'm going to hand it over to you, and you're going to take us through all the work that you do and setting up a drawing and getting it ready for presentation.
Okay.
Okay. I'm handing over to you now. Here we go.
Okay, Joe. Just like I ask every webinar, can you see my screen?
I can see your screen.
Okay. So welcome to webinar 2, everyone. This is going to be a pretty neat one that I want to just go over a lot of basics for some of you, but hopefully some existing users will learn too. I've used it for 13 or 14 years now, and I was a hand drawer too. My training was in landscape architecture and drawing, hand rendering, and I never was able to pick up AutoCAD. I just had this like a block. So I looked into software, and when I looked through all of them, obviously I picked DynaSCAPE because I think, and I believe it, that they have the best graphics on the market for any landscape program, and it's a very specific to our industry, so it caters to what we need to do. So the software is built for us to be very easy. The functionality is very simple, and it is not what I call bloated software. But on for them, you'll probably see like a white screen with some drawing things in it that show you this as a template. But this is really it. And the first time I ever saw it, I was pretty intimidated by all these buttons. And I kind of started to sweat a little bit. However, after probably a few days of watching the videos, I realized that there really aren't that many tools. I mean, there kind of are, but there aren't a lot. There's not more than what we need. And as Joe would say, some software programs are like bringing a shotgun to a paintball match. Well, this is not that. So to start off, they've made it very easy where these are all of our sheet sizes. I call them paper spaces, but these are all the different sheets and scales that you can use. It also even comes in metric as well. But obviously in the U.S. we're just using all of these inches. So the drawing we're going to do today, we're going to do an 18-inch by 24-inch drawing. And it's going to be 110, 1 inch equals 10. So we select this and we click OK. So this outline, if you look at this button, it says limit. That's our 18 by 24 inch sheet of paper. There really is not any time that I've ever thought that I needed to get rid of the limit. So if you're looking for those and you can't find them, there's your limits button. Anytime the buttons are white, that means they're turned, they're activated. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to save this. And we'll save it like on our desktop. Actually, where is my desktop thing? I just changed these things around for this webinar. Let's just put let's see. Okay, here we go. We'll just call this base sheet 1. Always, always, always save these when you start them so you don't get off to the races and begin drafting and making things great and then the power goes out or you accidentally don't save it and you shut it down. So this is our 18-inch by 24-inch sheet of paper, and it would really be nice to have a title block, right? Well, they've already done that for us. This is the figure library. All of the items and figures that you're going to use for a drawing are in here. A person on a bike, a semi-truck, trees, shrubs, ponds, fireplaces, all kinds of really cool stuff. For a while there, they were really pushing out quite a bit of libraries, and it was awesome because they really beefed up the selection. So you're going to see T-Block 18 by 24. These are the preset ones that they have. So I'll tell you right now that this one here is, I would say, probably the most frequently used that I see. So there's some pretty cool things going on here. These are all of the items in a drawing that we would want to put in there as far as, you know, depicting what the scale is, the client, all that information. So up in a little toolbox is something where if you click that, I can type in drawn by Patrick Duchesne, and it's checked by Joe Salemi. So that automatically populates all that information. I can put in a scale by going to title block accessories. I can put in a north arrow. And just as a suggestion for all of you who are using it or even aren't and maybe doing it by hand, do yourself a favor and your clients a favor, and at the bottom of your drawing, put what the sheet size is. This has saved me many, many phone calls since I've started doing this from clients in a rush at Kinko's or Staples trying to figure out what sheet size this is. So put that at the bottom under your scale every single drawing so they know what that is or they know what the sheet size is. And if you want to, you can put in a logo, your company's logo. Just throw that right in there. Okay? There are ways to move that around, but we'll do that in another webinar. So let's save this. Okay, we have a template that looks nice. It'll print nice. The borders work out. And we want to start drafting. So there's 2 ways of starting a base sheet for us to do our drawing with the house and the property. Number 1 we can use hand-drawn notes or measurements, or we can bring in a survey. So let's look at bringing in a survey and how that works. So you can bring in a JPEG, you can bring in a PDF. So let's just bring in a JPEG image that I've done. Now you see how it's a little blurry? There are settings in DynaSCAPE in environment under performance settings. You see how it says reduces resolution of rasters? If I switch this over to balance and I click OK, yes, and it restarts, see how much nicer that is? So the software is putting a little bit more energy now into giving us a clear screen, and it's backing off the performance a little bit. So this, of course, is not going to be the right scale yet. If I were to measure this, this should be 12 feet 8. That is not 12 feet 8. That's 10 foot 9. So there's a tool for that in the imaging at the bottom. And this is my house footprint drawing. And I'm going to apply a dimension. Let's just do, you want to try to find the longest dimension you can, really. So let's use the 62. Using a longer dimension will increase the accuracy. So that is from this point here. You really zoom in on these to get them nice. Zoom on that point. So what we've done is we've told software that between those 2 points, we want that to equal 62 feet. Now, don't just start drawing yet. Go cross-check a lot of, well, not a lot, but like, I don't know, 4 or 5. That's 11.7. So I'm a little off there for some reason. See, 11.7. This, let's see what this one is. That one's 12.11. So something's not right with how they drafted this, because that 13 worked out. Let's try one more. Let's do 58.8. See what that gives us. So that's dead. That's right on. So I'm not sure what this 12.8 was really referring to. Maybe it was that line there. Who knows? But this is right, other than that little spot. But if I really goofed around with it, I could probably figure out why that's off. So this is a milestone. I consider these milestones where when you're in a drawing and you don't want to lose what you've done, just hit the disk button. Don't go to File and Save. Just hit the disk. Okay. Few tools that you can use. This tool, when you hover over it, says draw a building line. I don't use this tool. Some, I'm sure quite a few people do. If you don't have windows on your house, no, let's not. If you don't have like the dimensions broken down on the house as far as where the windows are, and it's just graphical, you can just click this point, hit window, and see what it's doing. It's breaking that out into a non-filled area, and then it's going to default back to wall, and then let's click on door. So it's really cool how you can just fly around this drawing and create a building footprint very easily and quickly with this building tool. Now, if you had a dimension, though, and this was 3 feet, I can put 3 feet. And see, it's going to give me a 3-foot wall. And then if I have a window that's, let's say, 8 feet, 8-foot window. Pretty cool, right? So if I turn that survey off, you can see this is really nice. It's breaking these little wall sections out, the garage, all that. So that's one way you can do this. Another way, if you don't really want to do windows, you can just take like the Polyline tool. And you can just run this if you don't have dimensions all along. We want to use the building layer though, which this is kind of the same concept where when we learned how to draft, the thickest marker, my fill's not on, the thickest marker, the thickest width of pen or whatever that would be your building because it's darker and all the higher elevation things are darker. So if you wanted to, then you could just turn fill off, turn fill on. You could do it this way too. A recent update with design was you can actually assign length to Polylines tool. So that's pretty neat. So you trace your house. Any other things in the landscape, like if you had a walkway, you would take you could possibly take your Polyline tool. If there was a walkway, let's change it back over to the walkway layer, and let's just pretend there was one here. You would go through and trace all of the elements. It's a really yucky looking walkway, but then you would have a walkway like this. So this is how you would bring in a survey and scale it and trace everything. But what if you don't have that? Like I said in my last webinar, there are quite a few people who don't even know what those are. So let's get rid of this, and let's bring something else in that's not, which would be a hand-drawn sketch right here. Let's bring this outside. Okay, so this is a hand-drawn sketch. Pretty much everything is here that I need. So I would start with, let's start over on the corner. That's 2 feet. So I'm looking at pictures that they would have sent me, like on another screen. I would be looking through pictures like this, just to verify that things make sense, okay? So really good quality pictures, even though there's snow. They went back and they got some in the springtime. So if we do have these, let's start with our line tool, and let's do a 2-foot wall and make sure we're in the building layer, okay? We're going to do 2 feet. Then there's the 12-foot door. So let's take out that fill and do a 12-foot door. That, not really sure about, so let's just kind of make a couple things up. Who knows what that is? Let's just jump like right over to the end there, and we'll pick up where that is. So like, remember when I said last time, make sure you get really good measurements? This is exactly what I'm talking about, where I'm a little confused about what's going on. Now I see this is 11 foot to there, which that looks like that's what that is. But then there's a door here, and there's some dimensions missing. So this is exactly what I was telling you about. Make sure you get all of these pieces right. Like that little measurement's missing too. Let's say we did get over here and we have, you know, something that looks kind of like it does. Then a porch, 12 foot by 11. So rather than making all different lines, why not put a porch in there for the base sheet that's 12 feet by 11 feet, and we could float that in. I should have sat that on top of it, but sit this right on the line. So you go through your drawing with your, you could put your hand rendered thing right in here, so you're just looking at one screen and it's easier to reference, and get a nice base sheet made. So this is the moment where, like on cooking shows, they open the oven and something's already ready to go, where you end up with this webinar base sheet, okay? So here's our base sheet. We created the garage, here's the driveway, here's the deck. You notice everything is a closed polyline. Now you don't have to close polylines to color. It was an update in the last month, I think it was, something like that. I just have a habit of doing it because that's how I've done it. But these will all be ready to color. So now I have a nice base sheet that I can either start designing right away, or I can print this out and sketch on it. So for people who like to do things by hand, and getting into CAD software is a whole different world than being in paper. This was really a crutch for me to learn really how to draft and to line things up and to learn the tools right. So you can save this just by going to File, Save as JPEG or PDF. You can save that as just a base sheet that you can print out that looks just like this. Really easy, okay? So at this point, if you either print it out, you could sketch on it. Or if you have a device like an iPad Pro or like a Surface Pro, which I'm doing this on right now, you can then open it up in like a Microsoft Paint, or there's Drawboard PDF, there's Adobe, I can't remember what it was on the iPad, but I can literally take my pencil and start, this is a little clumsy because my tablet is upright, but I could literally just start drawing things in like this. Put my steps in. Actually, I really should do this in like a black. If I want to run a walkway here, I'm going to need steps. You know, run some down, split this. This is really bad, but you get what I'm saying. I can really start doing some studying. I've got a walkway here, you know, maybe I have a sitting area here with a seat wall. I can change the color. Let's see, I can run maybe some plants here. I can zoom it in. Well, I can't zoom in on this one, but you get what I'm saying. It's a lot cleaner when you have it actually sitting, but you really can start doing spatial dynamics and sketching right on this, which helps a lot. And you'll get better and better at it where you're going to start sketching at the right scale. So once you have kind of done that, you'll get something that kind of looks like this. This was something I did on my iPad, and this took me maybe 10 or 15 minutes. I sketched it out, changed the colors, labeled it off, and this was a project that I sent to a designer that was helping me. And she kind of drafted everything and cleaned it up, and then I, you know, finalized with the labeling. So, but let's say you want to bring this back into your drawing. So let's get into the drawing and bring that drawing into, or bring our sketch into the drawing. So here's that sketch, okay? Now, this sketch was created with this footprint. So if I measure the length between this and that wall, we get 74 feet, 2 inches. So what I'm going to do is the same thing I did on that other drawing, 74 foot 2. I'm going to assign this length here to be 74 feet 2, just like the base. And if I float this over top of it, it better match. So let's highlight everything, and let's get these corners to line up. Pretty darn perfect, okay? That shows me that I just scaled this right. So I'm going to save this, because if the power goes out or whatever, I don't want to lose it. Okay, this is where the fun starts. And this is where this really starts to, that gap in time, like that time where you really are going to start noticing a lot more speed and efficiency with drafting in here as opposed to pencil. So, you know, when we design, sometimes we put the plants in, sometimes we put the walks in. It just depends on if there are determining factors that will limit one or the other. So let's throw some shrubs in. So these green shrubs I've labeled as green velvet. So in our figure library, I'm going to grab this shrub, and I'm going to make those 2.5 feet wide. As you learn the software, you're going to go find those shrubs that you really like to use, and then you'll end up using them all the time. So I sketched them pretty darn close. So there's one. So the next one I put in, I don't need to go do all that again. I can just click my Move tool here. I can copy 3 over here, right? So now we want 3 more there. Well, instead of drawing 3 individual ones, why not take these 3 and we can slide these right over here. Now, they're kind of close to the house, so let's highlight these and just move these back a tiny bit. And don't ever zoom in your head on these. You want to just keep your head, whatever that magic number is, away from the screen. Use your zoom feature or function to do the work for you. All right, so there's our 3 boxes on each side, but there's 3 more. And I want to center them on my house, or the front porch. So if I take these, so here's a little trick. You take this, you move it from the center point of those, and watch this. This is really slick. Where's my midpoint? Right there. See, it says midpoint in the pink? Now those are in the center of that wall. So if I slide this down, those are right where they need to be. So that's just the move tool. That moves and copies things. So let's throw this step in here that it looks like was on our old base sheets that I didn't bring over. So that step probably is 4 by 1. So let's make a 4 foot by 1 foot step. So here's another trick for you. I see this a lot where users will do 1 foot like this, then they'll do 4 feet, and you'll like enclose the step. But why do that when you could just use a 1 foot and a 4 foot height and throw your step right there? There's your step. It'll color in DynaSCAPE color. And we have another one on the other side. So if we take our copy tool, let's just slide that right over to the other side. Okay? It's not perfect, but you can zoom way in and slide these over. So, well, you know, just keep in the back of your head, the wonderful thing of all of this is if I don't like this, I just get rid of it. I don't want to do those like this. I just highlight them and I trash them and I start over and do something else. There's no eraser. There's no eraser, whatever you call them, shavings or whatever, all over the table. It's very easy, and I think this is one of the biggest things that I love. I was much more capable. It was so much easier to do studies and figure out the solution to the problems in these designs as opposed to having sheet upon sheet and doing overlays. I mean, if you wanted to do overlay things, you do one version, and then you can copy the whole thing over and maybe do another version in another study. So we have some plants. Let's start making our walkway and our steps. So let's just pretend we knew where this was, this stoop that we need to make. So let's make this porch 4 feet by 3 feet high. And we're just going to line this line up right here. And there's our stoop. That's not wide enough. So here's where what I was just saying, not wide enough. Get rid of it. Make one that's 6 feet wide, 6 by 4. I mean, just the process of being able to make perfectly perpendicular lines at the exact length you want instantaneously is, I mean, we all take this for granted who have been using this for so long, but it's just an incredible function. So now I can start really just running lines out. My constraints are not turned on. because I'm using shift and control. But if you wanted to do a straight line, you just put shift and constraints on the polar, and there's your line. I've never clicked this on polar and draw a line that was not perfectly 45 degrees, 90, 180, 360. So now this is the point where I'm just going to start doing some studies with this. So I want this walkway to run all the way across and be even. So I can do something as simple as running this line through, taking this line and sending it over, and taking the trim tool and just trimming a few of these pieces out. Look how easy that was. So let's line this up. Now, you can't always do this, but when I design, and I'm not saying that I know everything, but I try to make it where when customers are building jobs, they have dimensions that the crews that are easy for them. Like, try not to make a walkway that's 14'3" and 5/8" or something crazy like that. Make it easy. So if I did this sketch, I'm going to take this measuring tool and see where this kind of needs to be. It's right around 2'4". So I'm going to try to make that line like a 2'6", because it's a lot easier for a crew leader to remember 2'6" or deal with 2'6" rather than 2 feet 2.5. It's just easier to digest and lay out. So I got this line. Let's see if some of these things start working that I want to do. These blue things I didn't label on here, but let's make those a graph. So let's do a 3-foot wide graph. So it's already labeled 3'3". So here's a graph. Now, I'm not going to do this one because I'm going to show you a really awesome tool. So I'm only going to do half of this bed. So there's our graph. These, let's make this like a upright evergreen, like a green velvet or a green mountain boxwood or something like that, something pyramidal. So let's go to down here. This is a really nice one. Let's make this 3 foot by 3 foot. Okay? Perfect. So let's hit that right there. This is the math of the perennials, and grab a perennial that you like for coreopsis, maybe this one. Coreopsis will draw that at maybe, what, 14 inches by 14 inches, something like that, like a moonbeam, something small. And let's just plop those in. When you bring them in, you can kind of rotate them too, so you can randomize them. So here, this looks good. Let's put one there and one there, okay? If you ever want to see what this looks like without all this stuff in the background, just make this invisible and see what it looks like. See, it's looking pretty cool. Everything's nice and straight. Let's turn this back on again. Okay. These, let's just make those like a perennial like dianthus or something, like a low-growing perennial. Let's grab this one, and let's make those 2 feet by 2 feet. Okay, so I'm going to line this up here with the center of this boxwood. So like right in here, okay? And let's put 2 more of these next to each other. Remember, I'm just going to copy and I'm going to slide them. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. So this ended up perfectly. Okay, now watch this. This is really cool. Let's save this. Let's turn this off. Okay. So obviously I want this side exactly how this side is. This is a little too high up. You could simulate this to if you had to develop or design a planting for a homeowners association or the entrance to a neighborhood or whatever, that you have something on the opposite side of the street, and it's going to be the same bed but mirrored, and I'm telling you from experience, that's just such a nightmare to have to do, because you have to line everything up and measure to make sure it's all balanced, and you try to do the best you can. Well, this is so easy. Look through here and just make sure everything's perfect. That's too close, so let's just tie it up there. Okay, so I'm going to copy everything that I want to mirror over to the other side, okay? I want to copy these, not copy, mirror over to the other side. So you see this tool here, mirror objects. I'm going to click that. I'm going to click the midpoint and check this out. Instantaneous. How cool is that? I mean, I could take these and do the same thing over here. You know, I can spin this around however I want. So this is a really awesome way to do drafting. And it takes a little time, but try to start training your brain of thinking ahead of, is there anything on this drawing that's mirrored of something else? Because if it is, look at how much time you're saving yourself by mirroring different things. If this, I could have mirrored this very easily with these boxwoods and taken those if I really wanted to. I mean, it's such a simple planting, it's not necessary. But I could have done that and taken this onto the midpoint and mirrored those right there. And I'm guaranteed the distance between this shrub and that foundation is the same as this. This is a tool that a lot of users it shows don't use or don't use enough of. All right, so now we have a planting in here. We have our 3 boxwoods. Let's just finish up the planting right along the foundation. So let's go into shrubs. Let's make this like a Jap maple, which that's good because that's what I said I wanted it to be. This is a really great figure for Japanese maple. Let's do like 5 by 5 right here. Now, in the drawing, I put slender deutzias, which can get 30 inches, 36 inches wide. I drew them a little too big in here, so they're not going to fit. I mean, that many of them are not going to fit. So let's just draw them in at like a 30-inch by 30-inch. So you can either put 30-inch or 2.5, enter, and it'll do the same thing. So there's 1, and there's 2. Okay, they're finished. Now let's finish off our walk. So literally, if you can check this, now I drew this a little narrow, look. If I measure the width of my walk, I only drew it about 3 feet, which is okay because I can always adjust it. So let's take this and offset this 4 feet, and will give us the right width. So this tool, let me back up a second. This is a really great tool, offset. Basically, you select the line, you want to offset, and you tell it which direction to go in that many feet. Let's run a line over in front of here. Let's maybe run one up here. And let's take a Polyline tool. Watch what a Polyline tool does. Here's the difference between a line and a polyline. This is a line. They look the same, right? Well, they're not exactly. This is a control point that moves. This, I don't know what DynaSCAPE support calls this point. I call it a push point, and that's really what you do. You push and pull this point. So if I use this point and I run this line out and I trim these pieces, look what I can do. I can take this and really have a nice curve to this, okay? So let's just offset this one more time here, just to show you again this offset tool, this 4 feet. Okay, so if I were drafting this, at this point, if I check this all out and it worked and I know my distances are right, I would take, this is a little bit more advanced. This is an extension tool, which basically takes 2 lines that are not touching each other. Like if I were to get rid of, I trim this out, and I wanted to send this one over to this green line, I could take this and send this line over to that line, okay? So let's just pretend we have this walkway the way we like, and we'll start tracing it. So I'm going to go through with my closed Polyline tool, and I'm going to trace everything in my walkway all the way around. So you can see where this sketch really helps us out a lot. And my inference is not on. I'm holding down Shift, but if I didn't want to do that, I would just hold down the keep the shift button. Run this all the way up. I'm going to take this off because I don't want it distracting me. Run this up. Now, I overshot this, didn't I? So if I delete, it'll take me back one spot. Okay? So I'm going to hit my deck, and we're going to run down. And let's straighten it here, and then maybe run our curve down into here and go right over this line. And when I get back to where I need to start, I'm going to put close polylines so I know where my start point was back up in this corner. So let's shoot up here. I'm going to keep it straight right there and run this over and end up nice and straight right there. Okay. We're almost there with our walkway. So remember, our polylines have push points. Now all we need to do is just dress this up here. That's good. Let's fix this curve here. Now, this is another great thing that you really can't do as easily in hand drawing. If I don't like how this angle hits, I could swing this point down if I wanted. I could pull this point over a little bit, you know, and really start to play around with this until I'm happy with it. And look at that. I was able to smooth that out nicely, no coat hanger curves. Everything is nice and smooth, okay? So now we have a nice walkway. I didn't curve this out yet, so let's just push this out. Get rid of a couple guidelines here that we have. We don't need that. Go and clean some things up. Okay, we got a great walkway. Let's move this into our drawing space now, okay? So let's take this in here. Now that is right in there. Now, let's just put our title block right in there because I didn't bring that in on this one, so we'll just throw one right there. And we'll just pretend we had all of our information on there as far as our name and title and customer and scale. Okay, so now we have a drawing. Let's offset our walkway so we have a border. So I drew this in the wrong layer. I drew this in the shrubs layer, which just by clicking Control-click, I can check the layer by hitting Display. So all I need to do is hit Revise, click Walk, and right-click and left-click, and let's change that over to just Walk for now and Walk Patio. Okay, so let's offset this with the Offset tool. Let's give it a 5-inch, let's give it a 6-inch border, and we will run this inside. Every once in a blue moon, this happens on mine. Not sure why. It might be the way I'm hitting my polylines, but you just clean that up real quick. So we're in good shape. Okay? Now, we've got a great walkway. We've got a border. We're going to hatch this, but we'll hatch it at the end because sometimes if you have a lot of hatches, it can slow your drawing down a tiny bit. So we'll wait till the end. Now, we want to group our plants. We want to label them. We want to call them out by name. So there's this, I call it the spilled milk tool, but it's the cluster tool. So when you click this tool and you click all the same plant material, I'm just left-clicking every one, and then I'm right-clicking. Those are all groups now. So when we label them, it's going to color them all at the same time. It's going to count them. It will allow us to do a planting schedule, and it will allow us to print out a material list with plant material, or a plant list. So those are groups. So you just go through and you group all of the things that you want in the same labeling. Now, if you are doing a master plan, you have a front foundation and a back planting, I mean, you can group all these, but you really want to group them based on work area if you can, because it'll make your estimating a lot easier. And like when you bring them into, if you're using Manage and you're putting them into work areas, which is this tool here, that makes a lot more sense down the road to be grouping by work area. So we just go through, make sure everything is grouped. Let's just group all these. with a couple of swipes. And then you just cross-check. You click everything and make sure it's all grouped. And every once in a while, this is the ungroup tool. Every once in a while, you'll get one of them that you forgot to group. So on your cross-check, you think you're in good shape, but you start checking them, and you get to this, and you see him. So just because you did not group it in the beginning doesn't mean you can't do it now. So you go grab the group tool, and you throw that back in. So now it's all grouped. You know, you don't have to do this now because color will allow you to, but I always like to go through with my plant bed layer, which is right here. One more click, and it's there. And I like to enclose all these areas nicely. So when I color them, they all color. I can get really nice square foot takeoff for my mulch calculation, which this will kind of go into in a couple webinars about laying out jobs, knowing square footages, and estimating. So I'll go and close those all those areas in. Now let's label this, okay? So I used to label just by running one line down, but I was actually helping teach a DynaSCAPE course in New Jersey, and the professor showed her class how she labels. And at first I thought, that's kind of like a little goofy, but then I did it on my own drawing, and I really liked it, and I saw really the value of it. And the whole concept was it made the drawing, I think, a little bit easier to read. So she was staggering her labels. So I stagger my labels now, and it seems like people like that because it doesn't picture frame it as much, and it just, I think it softens the edges. Okay, so let's label a few of these plants. Now, this is my library, and if you go in here, these are all my favorites that I've created of go-to plants that I use for my clients. And I'm still building up the linking these because this is a new computer. But you can link favorite plants with all of these. So like whatever plant you want to print on a plant packet or on your drawing, you will link those to these. You can put sizes, prices, categorize them by what plant type they are, zones. It's really cool. But right out of the box, you're going to be searching from DynaSCAPE.com, and that's this database that Joe was talking about. That Joe, you said it's with, is it still Cornucopia? Joe? Okay, so right now it's with Cornucopia.
Here, there was a problem with my audio. Yeah, so we've added the woody ornamentals from Proven Winner, so they're in that list.
Okay, good. I was just panicking because I thought I'd been doing a webinar for 20 minutes and nobody was hearing me, or I was...
No, you've got lots of people paying attention and asking questions.
Okay, good. Oh boy, was that going to be bad. All right, so we're in DynaSCAPE. Let's do green velvet. Now, I could type in green vel, and anything in the database that starts with that is going to come up. So let's do green velvet boxwood. We want it to say auto count and click go. So watch this. As soon as I click one, they're going to highlight. They flash blue. So I'm going to label this and run this out to the outside. Okay, so it launched again and says, okay, Patrick, now what do you want to label? Let's do those Liriope. So let's do Liriope. Big blue lily tur, okay? Go. And let's run this label out here. Now, I am going to stagger these, but I'm not going to do it yet because God knows there are a lot of times that we forgot to put in a label here, and it'll throw the whole rhythm off. So I've just decided I'm not even going to mess with that now. I'm just going to do them all along one line. And then when I know everything is there that needs to be there, then I'll go stagger them at the end. Okay, Let's make those Hamlin fountain grass. So all I have to do is type H-A-M-E-L, enter, and check it out. Everything with that in it. So I'm not having to type out Pennisetum alopecuroides Hamlin. I just do what I know is in there. Okay? So dwarf fountain grass. There's 2 of them. Okay? Then we're going to make these, let's make those like Zagreb Coreopsis. It doesn't get much easier than this, does it? Well, yeah, it does, if the software actually did all this for us, but that's never going to happen. At least Joe hasn't told me about it yet. Okay, let's make those Green Mountain boxwoods. Okay, Green Mountain sugar maple, Green Mountain boxwood. So let's run this. Let's run that out on a 45. So this is really neat. So when I'm labeling, it's going to snap to 45. So this is really nice because it forces you to not have this. How many of you have seen a drawing with labeling that is all like, let's just put in label. One's like this, one's like this, one's like this. This is absolute chaos. And I'm telling you, it is a really big distraction to the eye. So try to run labels on 45s and 90s. Or if you have some other angle you want to run them on, stay consistent. But that's the way the labeling does in this, 45s and 90s. Let's do, I don't know, let's just type in sedum. There's a million sedums here. So let's put gold moss sedum. I'm not sure what that is, but oh well. Okay, gold moss sedum. Now this, let's jump over to this side now. We've got a couple plants we could run on the left. So let's put in Deutzia. Deutzia. Under Deutzia, all these different kinds. If you don't see something that you want in there, you can very easily make your own plant. So don't worry if there's going to be plants that are not in here that you want because there's plants coming about all the time. Let's say because that's going to be a dissectum, let's put dissectum and it's going to give us some different ones. So let's do Crimson Queen, Japanese maple. Okay, let's run this down so these aren't on top of each other. Okay, so this is kind of a problem here, right, where it's overlapping. Now, my drawing is definitely not in the center of my screen, which that's not a great thing for this drawing. So let's slide it over here. But if that happens again and it's going outside, just control-click on that and go to Data. And if you don't want to say Japanese, you can get rid of that, and maybe you could move that down. And look what you can do to the label. You can kind of clean it up a little bit to save yourself some space, okay? And then because I moved that without moving the guidelines, I'm just going to move this over, and the same thing with this. Whenever one thing travels, everything needs to travel, okay? All right. Later on, I'm going to show you what I've been doing with my labeling to spread these out and sizing, which looks a little nicer. On anything in DynaSCAPE with 11, just put a space between it. Every once in a while, people will say they look like they're a little too close. So just throw a little space between the 11, and then they don't mistake it as a 1. Okay? Now, let's save it. We're at a milestone. I'm just going to zip all the way up here, hit these, and I'm going to run this to this. See what I'm doing? I'm just jumping these, just playing hopscotch with these things, running those over. Let's jump over the other side. Same thing, okay? So if I have a manual label I want to insert, I'll put in insert text attached to a label. And let's say Unilock Brussels dimensional papers. Okay? There, that's good. Let's put in new steps. And how about we slide, okay, check, this is exactly what I was telling you. Remember, lawn, okay? So we're done, we're finished now. This layer here is the plant label layer. I always change mine to Walkway. It seemed like in the beginning when I was doing drawings, the Walkway just popped a little bit more. You could also go in here if you wanted to and just change the thickness of your line weight with the plant label, because that could play a part when you deal with modes down in the future. So try to stick with the layer that it's giving you right now until you really get into it and you know what you're doing about switching things in modes. So I'm happy with the labeling now. Really the last thing I would do with something like this is I would run, if this was lawn, I would run this lawn area. I messed up. Let's run this line out here and get my closed polyline, and I would go through and I would run my lawn all the way. This mouse keeps jumping for some reason on this GoToMeeting. Okay, we would put a bed here. However, for webinar's sake, we'll just make this all lawn. Okay, close it. Okay, so we kind of goofed here, but don't worry about it. I've seen so many people delete this whole thing and go back. We're fine. It's right there, okay? And we pushed this line out, and I made a mistake again. I did not use the right layer. So let's change that over to plant layer. So if you do a drawing and you realize you goofed and your layers aren't right, it's no big deal because you can change them really, really easily. So here's our drawing. Now we want to send a spreadsheet to our nursery, and we want to put the plant list on our drawing. So watch how quick this is. The little plant on a calendar, plant schedule. Click that button. We can select what columns we want. So if we put every column there and we click OK, see all the columns that are showing? Key, quantity, botanical, common, size, remarks. If we don't really care about certain ones of those, we can get rid of them. So key code, get rid of. Quantity, we want. Botanical, let's get rid of those. Common name, yes. If you're not doing size and condition or remarks, don't worry about them. If you want a nice grid like that, click that. Okay, so they already come categorized based on what they are. Like, there are some sedums though. Some people call them perennials, some consider them ground cover. So you can change this to ground cover if you want, or perennial, because, I don't know, some homeowners, if you said that we're planting a bunch of succulents, they may not know what they are, and they might be like, what are, I don't know. I think it's just easier to tell people perennials, but that's up to you. So you're not locked into what these are categorized as. So we click OK, and here is our plant schedule. Really, really, really easy, okay? I can take that, I can move it, I can stretch it like this. Really simple. Now, I can also do a little bit of artwork on here as far as putting some pictures in. I'll show you my method on another webinar, which is in some other webinars about putting more bulk images in at one time. But I can really easily go to my imaging tool, left click and right click on Slenderdeutia. So there's the picture that it gives you. However, I can go to I can put a custom image in there, and I can go put a custom image in like there, plant images, and then I can just type in Slender And this is a picture that I like to show for Slender Deutzia. And I click Insert, and I can just throw this picture right on the page. Pretty easy. Now, just really quick, in case some of you are forgetting, if you want to move this, don't redo it. Just move the box, and then go in here and grab the Slender Deutzia picture, and click here and here. Much, much easier. Then you can really organize this really, really nicely. So that's kind of what I'm going to end on. I'm going to get into color and presentations in another webinar, but pretty darn quickly you can get to, this is the end result. This is that drawing. Look how similar this looks to my sketch. Pretty darn close, right? So once you get good at this, you know, this whole drawing, the sketch maybe took me 10 to 15 minutes. I think it took the individual who was drafting it for me probably sufficient time to do this. You know, and if you didn't like that version, this is where people really think you took a lot of time to do something which really didn't take much time. You can always copy this over, and you could do a different version where maybe this is something like this, and this doesn't do this, and then you can show your clients two different versions on the same sheet with minimal effort. And I mean, revisions are a big thing, and Joe probably will agree with me that that is one of the biggest keywords that clients tell them at trade shows when they're hand drawers, of things that they just need to start eliminating. Am I right?
Yeah, by far, you know, one of the most important things is saving time, and you know, when a client asks you to do a revision, you know, for those that have drawn the plan by hand, the thought of the revision is just a nightmare.
It's a nightmare.
Made so
big time.
Easy.
Yeah. And add in the ability to just quickly save these drawings as PDFs and email them to a client rather than having to drive all the way to a client's house to look at something to make sure you're on the right track. So there's a lot of communication expediting the process with emailing and speeding that process up too. So hopefully I didn't go too fast, but I want to make sure I hit on a lot of things. So
no, that was great, Patrick. Thank you so much. There was quite a few questions from the audience as we went along, and there were questions that I were able to answer. Essentially, they were asking, you know, what did Patrick just do? What were some of the lines that he was using? How did he switch the layer? And those kinds of things. So I definitely answered those in the question panel. It doesn't look like we have any other questions that have come up at the moment.
Okay.
So up next, our webinar number 3, getting into the details, and essentially this will be doing dimensioning plans, construction documents, those kinds of things. That'll be October 27th, which is a Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. The reason we have a bit of a break is because next week the DynaSCAPE team, including myself and Patrick, will be in Louisville, Kentucky at the Green Industry Expo, which is the largest gathering of landscape professionals in North America. There's something like 20,000 people that come to this trade show that have almost 800 exhibitors. So the education, the networking, the Kentucky bourbon, and DynaSCAPE. You know, what other reasons do you need to go to Louisville? So we'll be looking at the details webinar October 27th, getting into the presentation on November 3rd, advanced presentation techniques. So we're going to be looking at some 3D modeling techniques using SketchUp on November the 10th, and then transitioning from the design to the estimate on December the 1st. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, my name is Joe Salemi. I'm with DynaSCAPE Software. If you would like to reach out, if you'd like any information on any of the DynaSCAPE suite of software, please give me a call at 1-800-710-1900. And you can get us at extension 2. My email address is jsalemi@dynascape.com, and our website is dynascape.com. Patrick, thanks so much for your time. Everyone out there, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again in our next upcoming webinar. Thanks so much.